Hello everyone, my name is Wylam. Today we're going to be talking about a very simple but very important question. And that is, if you get invited onto a podcast, what are the steps that you need to take in order to put your best foot forward? If you think about it, in an audio podcast, your voice represents yourself and also the podcast. So you want to put your best foot forward. You want to have clear and crisp audio, and you also want to plan for what you're going to say. So these are the fundamental steps that you should really think about before you come onto a podcast. I'm going to be joined by a couple of friends of mine who will also run very popular podcasts.
Yeah, so hey, Y, thanks for having me come on. My name is Trace Van Gordon. In the FPV community, I go by Von Quad, and I am the founder and host of the Quad Talk podcast and drone racing podcast that's been going on since January 2016, I think.
Hello, my name is Ruben Haudigi, and I run Sweep Wings. I'm the owner of Sweep Wings RC, and I do a podcast called FPV Raw that Y Lamb and L Vaughn kind of pushed me over the edge to kind of get going. And I also help out Steele Davis and Eric Konetsny. So I help those guys out, and then I'm part of the Team Failsafe podcast.
All right, so before we get on to this subject, there's one thing I want to emphasize, and that is going on to a podcast is very organic and it's very natural feeling. You know, it's a group of people that's talking about something they love. I don't want you to stress about what we're about to talk about, because all we're trying to do is we're just trying to make you think about how to make it the best experience that you can possibly make it into. That's really all there is to it. A lot of people come onto our podcast and they're like, wow, I didn't even realize an hour or 2 hours have passed. You know, it's a fun time. But at the same time, we really want you to get the most out of being on a podcast, which means you want to do a little planning in advance to get the most out of it. And that's what this is all about.
Okay, so minimum, let's say, and for all the mini quad guys out there and the guys that are in the drone racing scene, fixed wing, let's see, at least a pair of good earbuds and a mic that can tie into your computer or laptop, whatever you have. If you have a phone and you're traveling, and let's say you have some extra time, a Skype call, a good connection. So a solid link for sure, either a hard wire and some earbuds and a mic that's like tied onto it. So that would be like the minimum.
I like to send out a little email to each guest, kind of prepping them of what to expect and how to prepare. If it was a perfect world, my advice to a guest is, get yourself on a computer. That would be number one. Number two, if at all possible, Ethernet connection for the best bandwidth possible. That way, if you're capturing video and all of that stuff, you're just going to have the best quality coming through, because Skype is, you know how it is. Other than that, then we go into stuff like microphones and headphones. Microphones are a big thing, but, we don't expect somebody to go out and buy a microphone, right? I mean, so usually they're going to use something that they have. Time and time again, we end up being stuck with somebody just putting in some ear pods that have the mics on them. I mean, I don't know how many people do that, and it does work. We go with it because they're our guest and we're trying to accommodate and not expecting them to spend money. But if they can do anything more than that with the microphone, I mean, even the gaming headsets seem to be a nice like in between, because you get decent sound out of it. They get the headphones and the microphone in it, and that, and then coupled with some headphones, because it's best to have the headphones on. The reason why we want the guests and everybody to have headphones is to prevent the echoing, because if you don't have the headphones on and your speakers are you're listening to it as you're talking, there's an echo that gets produced back on the recording. So, I mean, really, that's the basics of it. Is be on a computer, Ethernet, have a decent mic, and have some headphones on.
So that's some really good advice from both Ruben and Trace. My advice here would be minimum, you definitely want headphones or earbuds, because it's really going to help with the audio quality. After that, if you have earbuds and it has a mic on the line itself, make sure that that mic isn't rubbing up against anything like clothing or a beard or anything like that, because there's going to be a lot of static that gets transferred if that happens. If at all possible, try to have a microphone, a good microphone or a decent microphone, $20 to $40. I feel like that's not too much to spend, especially if you use Skype a lot. If you use Skype a lot, investing in one of those, it's going to help you on the podcast. It's also going to help you on any Skype calls that you're going to be on. Gaming headsets, they work. I think they're really good. You just have to adjust your volume to make sure you're not really blowing out somebody else's audio on the other end. Other than that, I agree with all the advice that they have.
Let's see. If you had a little bit of pocket change to spend in on say your, I guess it would be your stationary setup if you're going to be at home and you're like, okay, I'm gonna kind of lightly get involved into like recording. Check out the it's a Behringer Q502. It's a USB mixer, and it's only meant for one person. You could probably do two, but it has an XLR. It also has the larger jack for if you want to hook in a guitar. I forget. I think it's like a 4 mil jack or something. It's the bigger one, not the 3.5. It's a little bit bigger. It's a quarter. Has tons of jacks, and it's about $50-$60. So you're still within range. And then you want to look at the Behringer Electro Voice microphone for $20, and a cheap XLR cable, say a 6-foot for your home. That's relatively cheap, and some headphones. You can use some cheap gaming headphones that you have already, or if you want to invest in some decent headphones, I prefer the Audio-Technica 50Xs, or you can get the 40s, which are still under $100, and they sound really good. The 50s have a little bit more bass, and then there are other headphones that are out there. Again, you're going to want to check out your budget and figure out what's going to work for you.
Let's just assume that they're on a computer and assume that they have a really good internet connection. The next solid link would be a good microphone. The microphone that I use, I bought when I first started podcasting, even before Quad Talk. I was doing a music photography podcast. Is I bought the Rode Podcaster mic. This is the one you see here. It's a nice solid USB mic. Now I like the USB microphones, which means that you can just plug it right into the back of your computer. It's just real easy. You don't need a mixer. You don't need any of that crazy connection. So a nice USB microphone is highly recommended. The microphone that I have is, it's a couple $100, but it's a really good, it's a good investment if you're going to be doing it all the time. I highly recommend the Rode Podcaster. But let's go to a budget. Over on Amazon, the one that I like, I have two of them. The Audio-Technica ART 2100s. They're about $59.99. That's a good solid microphone. That is I think that's a dynamic microphone. And also one that's popular is the Blue Snowball, $55. So it's not a lot of money to invest if you're gonna be doing some. A lot of people that are getting into FPV, they're doing all kinds of stuff with YouTube and all that. So it's a good investment to have a decent mic. That and, headphones. You don't have to spend a lot of money on some good headphones, but get yourself a decent little microphone and get yourself some $50 headphones. These are the Skull Candy. I think they're $50. But, you don't need a really good headphone. If you're just going to be a guest, it's, you could use your ear pods or something like that. It's not as important because the headphones are just for you. It's not for the recording. It's just kind of giving you. But if you're actually a podcaster, you want to have a good headphone so that you can hear everything when you're editing and all that.
All right. I'm going to let you go because I know you're a busy man. But before you do that, list me off all of the equipment you're using because I know you have a high-end setup. I'm sure somebody will be wondering.
I do. Okay, so on mine, we'll start from the mic all the way back. I have a Shure SM7B microphone. It is something I bought it with my own personal money. And then I have a nice, I think this is a Rode mic stand boom arm that the springs are, they can take the heaviness of a broadcasting microphone. Going into that, I go into a mixer, which lets me adjust my volume and adapt other plugins to that. If I want like an MP3 or a Skype call, it'll go into the mixer. And then that goes into the, actually I have a couple more steps after that. I have a Behringer Composer Pro XL, which is a gate compressor also. And then I can turn that down. That actually helps out big time. I could run 2 people on that. Below that, I have a pre-gain, which lets all the other equipment work less. So I'm not over exerting the gain settings. And then I can also mess with settings on that. And then it goes into my recorder. Now that is the final portion of the recorder. So after all this, mic, compressor, mixer, that audio is then perfect. Goes into the recorder for little to no editing. Maybe I'll bump it up a little bit if I like burp or whatever, then I can edit that out. But once it's in the recorder, I don't have to edit too much. So that's the key.
Nowadays, a lot of people are running video too. So a decent webcam would be nice. I mean, depending on what you have. I mean, if a lot of the computers now have a really good webcam on it, so you don't really have to do something like that. But lights, I have a couple of lights set up. I mean, one on each side of me. I'm always running a light, so it's even nice to have the guests and the podcaster be able to see you nice and clear. It just adds to the just the experience of it's like being in the same room with them. Just a nice computer, a good microphone, a good internet connection, decent camera, some lights. Really, that's about it. Anything beyond that is kind of just more like background and backdrops and stuff. I mean, some people want to have their sponsor banners behind them and all that stuff. That's always a good thing, because if it's making it to the internet and the people are watching it, it's nice to have their sponsors or their affiliations behind them. I know a lot of people do that.
So there's some really solid advice from Ruben and Trace on this. My minimum for hardware is earbuds, and wherever you have your mic, just make sure that it's clean. It's not rubbing up against anything. That's really all you need in order to be on a podcast. Now, if you want to upgrade your sound so that your voice, is crisper, it's cleaner, it's much more full, then you want to invest into, at first, probably a USB mic. If you just go on YouTube and you just Google, good podcasting USB microphones, any of the top ones that podcasters recommend will work out. They're all really good at this point. If you want to dive into the analog side and you want to, work with XLR cables, then you're going to have to work with mixers, pre-gains, audio interfaces. That's a little bit more advanced. That's when you really want to get nerdy and you really want the best possible audio. You'll notice Ruben, he likes to, go with all hardware-based effects. Me, I'm more software-based. I use the Universal Audio Apollo system. All of my gains, gates, preamps, and stuff like that is software-based, and that works for me, but everybody's a little bit different. All we're trying to say is there are many paths. Just go with one that you're comfortable with.
One of the first things that you need to take into consideration is being in a nice, quiet room, without, like a lot of noise, just because these microphones pick up a lot of stuff. That's always a good thing, is to kind of provide for yourself, think ahead and get somewhere nice and quiet. The other thing is, go ahead and use the restroom and the facility and all of that stuff and get that out of the way, because nothing worse than getting, 15 minutes in and having to use the restroom and rushing through questions and all that because you don't want to say anything, you feel embarrassed and you don't want to get up or stop it, because some people are intimidated, so they just bear with it. Those are those two things. And the other thing is that I always have with me is a bottle of water. I mean, because when you start to talk, let's face it, I start to get cotton mouth. So I always have to have, like right now, I have to have a little bit of water with me when I'm talking for an hour. Just helps lubricate everything and keep things going. So those are a couple of more considerations that a guest or a podcaster should look into. And that's really all the notes that I have. Why?
I hope this video was helpful to you. Again, at the end of the day, we really want you to come on, enjoy yourself, share your stories, share your knowledge. If you have any questions, let us know. We'd be glad to help you. Thank you so much for watching.
There you go. And that's an expensive setup, but thank you, Ruben. Too.
Well, actually, it's if you think about it, the preamp and the Ultra Gain Pro is a 2-system unit. So this system, I can have another person next to me, and we're both using the same system, and that's like, instead of buying 2 individual units.
Yeah. Keep trying to justify your spending habits. All right, Ruben.